Another episode of Gamezone. We've got a really great match here. We've got Matt Beer versus Jacob. But before we get to our competitors, we've got some great judges here. We've got Ryan. Ryan, how are you feeling about this match?
Well, a little conflicted here because one of the opponents in this match knocked me out in the previous game zone. So part of me wants to be very fair, wants to not hold any grudges here, but I'm just gonna say it's gonna be hard for me not to vote towards Matt. No, I'm kidding. No, this is gonna be a fun game. I mean, yeah, Matt beat me, but that's all about the way I play. But this is not about me. This is about Matt and Jacob, and I think there's gonna be something fun here, and I can't wait to see the questions we get and the answers they provide. So honestly, I'm all set. I could have been on a live stream on a Call of Duty, but you know what? This is better.
And also here we've got Haven. Haven, how are you feeling about this match?
Oh, I'm excited. I haven't done a Game Zone match yet, so I'm glad to be here. I want to give a shout out to Subraf for letting me be a judge again. Oh, yeah, man, Matt Beer versus Jacob, man, the questions that I'm looking at now, these look like hell of a questions, so I can't wait to see what these guys bring to the table tonight for this match.
But we've met the judges, and now we're going to bring in the competitors. Introducing first, we've got Matt Beer. Matt, how are you feeling about facing Jacob today?
Terrified is the word I would use right now. I have no notes, just FYI. So I'm going to this as blind as possible. Hopefully my memory does not fail me. So I would like to say in advance, congrats, Jacob, for moving on to the finals. But if somehow I can convince these guys to give me the point, then I am excited to face Brooklyn in the title match. I wish it was Grant because I have some unfinished business. He runs his mouth in the league saying that I backed out. I was scared to face him or anything, but no. I think both me and Jacob wanted to play Grant next so we could, knock him out, but that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So maybe one day we'll play in this league. But yeah, looking forward to it.
And introducing second, we've got Jacob. Jacob, how are you feeling about this match?
I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm having to rethink my life choices because the only reason I got Ryan to judge this match was because Matt's beaten him. I was hoping that there was a grudge, and he'd be like, I can't vote for Matt. But since he said that, I have to rethink that. No, but I'm doing good. I'm also a little nervous. Matt literally called me one of the best debaters we have in another league. So I have a lot to live up to. I can't let him down. So, yeah, I just gotta say words.
Now, we're going to go for the first question. Matt's going to go first on this. So the first question we've got is, what is the best game in the Tekken series? Matt, you're going to go first on this one. You've got 90 seconds on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, so to me and most people, if not everybody, the ones who don't agree with me are just wrong, the best game in this franchise is Taken 3. It's the third one. It was very influential. It, for fighting games in general, it took a big step forward as far as the graphics and gameplay goes in the fighting genre. So I'm going to go Taken 3.
All right, so we've gotten the opening from Matt. Jacob, time will begin when you start talking.
All right. When it comes to the best Tekken game, you got to look, what did it do to the series? What did it add? And while, yes, Tekken 3 had better graphics and better controls and was able to fix that, it didn't really do much to the entire game series. The first one to actually do that came out right after Tekken 3. It was supposed to be an update, but the developers realized that it could have been, it was so good that they should have just made a full game out of it. And that was Tekken Tag Tournament, the correct best Tekken game.
All right. and conceding the rest of his time. See how that pays off. One thing I did forget to mention is both players got an extra life, so if they want to extend their opening or extend their closing, then they can use it to get an extra minute. But yeah, and you've got 5 minutes on the clock. Time begins for the freeform when you start talking.
So I would like to clarify something. Tekken 3 did do things for the franchise as a whole. It introduced a bunch of characters in that game that ended up being franchise favorites. So it actually did do more than just look pretty and have a good gameplay as far as that. Your game didn't really do a whole lot. Yeah, tournament cool, but it didn't do as much as my game did.
So your game just added more characters. My game added a whole new mechanic. The reason it's called Tag Tournament is because they added tag fighting in there. A format that's been used in quite a bit of games after. It's not just you versus another fighter. It's you and another fighter versus two other fighters. It introduced a whole new gameplay function. It introduced a lot of new cool finishers, depending on who you had picked. If you picked King and Paul, they do something different than if you picked King and I cannot think of the guy's name, but the skeleton ninja guy, Kimitsushi, something like that. It added so much to it. Not only did it have the same characters that yours did, it added two more. So the fact that you're saying, well, my game added more, so did mine.
Okay, yeah, you had, the tag tournament part, but really that didn't. I got a weird message for some reason. Anyway, that didn't, it didn't really add a whole lot to it. Yeah, I mean, it was used in some games, but not a whole lot. That's just how I see it anyway. Like I said, a lot of the characters that my game introduced, and I can't think of any right now because no notes. Yippee. But a lot of the characters that my game introduced were franchise favorites. Without my game, a lot of the characters in your game would not be around. Now, subjectivity, maybe they would in a future game, but I don't think it would be Tag Tournament because it was the follow-up. It would be a ways down.
So you say the franchise favorite characters. Was Tekken 3 the first iteration of King? Was it the first iteration of Paul? Because they were in the first Tekken and Tekken 2. No, you look at the favorites, just like Mortal Kombat. I mean, they've been around since the first one. Well, yes, Tekken 3 added characters, didn't add the favorites, the one that everyone wants to play with. And you say that, well, yes, might added a feature. It didn't really mean much. Every game afterwards had the tag feature in there. And even games afterwards, you look at all the Marvel Capcom games, they have that tag feature, which was started in Tekken Tag Tournament. Really the only reason why most people say your game is the best of all the Tekken games is because your game saved the Tekken franchise. Mm-hmm. Tekken 1, Tekken 2, the controls were horrible. You jump up, the guy shoots up in the air. Your game fixed that. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tekken 3, for fixing it. My game took fixed controls, added graphics, and added a whole nother feature.
I wasn't even going to mention the control, so thank you for adding that to why mine's better than any other game, because without my game and, fixing that stuff, the franchise would be dead. It would have been dead shortly after. So there's that. And also, you look at the graphics, the way it looks. I think that's pretty important when it comes to gameplay, because if you have a game that looks crappy, then why would you play it? That's just going to damage your game as a whole. When you have the graphics, how they, influenced it, it still holds up with a lot of pretty, not like 2018, 2019 games, but for a while after, it looked better than a lot of the games. There was many games that came out in like 04, 05 that didn't look as good. Like Spider-Man 2 was one that comes to mind. Any of those games, they didn't look as good. This one looked better. And, like you said, and I totally agree, the controls, it really did change it and made the franchise a lot better.
So while yes, Tekken 3 looks better than a lot of newer games, you know what game it doesn't look better than? It doesn't look better than Tekken Tag Tournament.
Because they
Tekken
use the
Tag
same
Tournament,
engine.
they used new ones because Tekken 3 was on the PlayStation. Tag Tournament was on the PlayStation 2. They were able to upgrade that. They were also able to fix the controls too. That's the only reason they were able to get the tag system in there was because it used a different engine. It had better graphics. They were able to capitalize on the controls. They added a ton of new finishes with having the two fighter aspect.
Time.
And
Right. There was definitely a great 3-round debate. Now, we've got 1 minute for closing. And because Matt went first on the opening, Jacob, you're going to go first on the closing. So 1 minute starts when you start talking.
okay, you say your game had the best characters. Well, mine had all the same characters, had the most characters in any roster at the point with 39. I was able to also add Tetsujin and Unknown, the game's boss. You say yours had better graphics. Well, mine really had the better graphics. Yes, yours was able to save the franchise. Yours was able to save it from being irrelevant due to the bad controls. And thank you for that. But mine was able to not only work with those controls, but add so much to it. You can only have a base fighting game for so long. You have to keep adding it. Tekken 3, well, yes, it saved it. It would only save it for a little bit. The whole having the better controls, having that fighting function would only work for so long. You had to add to it. And they were able to do it 2 years later with the very next installment with Tekken Tag Tournament. Has great controls, just like here does, better graphics, more players, all things you're saying.
All right. Now we're going to go over to Matt for his closing. And time begins when you start talking.
Okay, so just to go over it real quick, just to keep it short and sweet. My game, Tekken 3, like you said, had better graphics. Maybe not better, I should say, but it had, for the time, really good graphics. Your game used the same engine as my game, which is fine. A lot of games will do that for follow-ups and whatnot. My game introduced a whole bunch of new characters that would go on to be fan favorites in the game. The gameplay was revolutionary for fighting games in general. And, like you said, thank you for that, because I totally forgot. The controls in Tekken 1 and 2 were not good. They were really bad. And with Tekken 3, the controls were much improved and saved the game, saved the franchise. Because if you don't have my game, or if you have my game and the controls are the same, the franchise is gone. It's done. Your game doesn't exist. My game saved your game. It saved the entire franchise as a whole.
Time.
And yeah. I don't know what else to say, though. There you go.
All right. So we had a great debate, but now it's time to judge this. Ryan, I'm going to go to you first on this. Who are you going to give your point to and why?
Jacob gets the point. Mainly, he was mainly focused with his argument, and even though most circumstances when he was like, talking about the positives of Tekken 3, and most debates, some people would notch that down, but the fact was, Jacob wasn't trying to. When he mentioned that how Tekken 3 fixed what was broken from Tekken 1 and 2, I figured that was him. That wasn't more of a knock on him, but that he was using that to build to why Tekken Tag was better, because Tekken Tag pretty much did what should have been done with the Tekken franchise earlier, adding new gameplay features, adding new mechanics involved, because the fact that Tekken 3 actually had to fix those from its previous, from the 2 earlier versions of the game. I thought that definitely added to him, because he was using it in part of his argument. He definitely sounded from what he was saying that wasn't some random note he brought up out of nowhere. But also, when it came to his closing, he also did mention that with Tekken Tag, it was definitely, it was a new improvement for the Tekken series. So Jacob gets the point.
Haven, who are you going to give your point to and why?
Yeah,
So-
they both had good points. But yeah, I agree with Ryan 100% on this one. I'm gonna have to give it to Jacob. You know, he just came up with more facts. You know, and Matt was kind of just treading water with some of the stuff he was saying. It would have been, you know, like Matt did mention, they put new characters in the game. Would have been nice to hear the names of those characters. You know, both of these guys could have talked about certain things instead of just the controllers and the engine. You know, so it was really close. But I'm gonna have to give it to Jacob.
So we move on to the next question with Jacob going up 1 point. And this one is a very interesting question, but the question is, what game is so hard to finish that makes you want to smash your controller? And because Matt went first in the opening for that one, Jacob's going to go first on this one. I'm just going to put 90 seconds on the clock. And time begins when you start talking.
All right. So, what game is so hard to finish that it makes you want to smash your controller? There's a game that is super, super difficult. And then you get to the end just to find out that that's not the actual end. And you have to go back and replay the whole game again is just so frustrating, so infuriating that just the anger makes you want to hold your controller and just snap it easily. And this game that I am referring to is the 1985 classic. But again, just like someone in another league, just because you're well known isn't always a good thing. The very infuriating Ghosts and Goblins.
But Matt, we go to you for the opening. 90 seconds is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
So I think I took this in a different approach. Maybe I misread the question. Oh well. To me, I think the answer is Battletoads. This is a game that's already hard from the get-go, but what it does is each level that you play, it gets longer and longer as you progress, and everybody gets tougher and tougher and tougher, more difficult, and the bosses at the end of these levels get harder and harder and harder to the point to where you're basically just a corpse just walking around, and a bunch of like zombies or whatever are just eating at you, just destroying you, and it's very upsetting. So yeah, I'm gonna go Battletoads.
So we've got Battletoads versus Ghosts and Goblins. I would have gone with Dark Souls myself, but 5 minutes is not on the clock. And the freeform debate will begin when someone starts talking.
So Matt, here's the okay. Thank you, Matt. Here's the biggest issue with Battletoads. If this was the hardest level in any game, you'd have it hands down. Level 3 turbo tunnels is so difficult. But if you look at the other 13 levels, well, yes, they're hard. The first two are actually relatively easy compared to the entire game. That third one, I just said, hardest level ever. It's incredibly difficult. But then 4 through 13, well, yes, are difficult and harder than 1 and 2, drop down tremendously compared to level 3. The biggest thing with Battletoads, it had a huge difficulty spike to combat game rentals. Most people would rent a game from Blockbuster or the game rental store, wherever you were living at. They'd have it for about a week. They'd get to level 3 and could never pass it, but their week was up, so they had to return the game. It was a tactic to get people to buy the game. And once you bought it, once you finally got past turbo tunnels, it wasn't as bad as level 3.
You see, I kind of disagree with that. Once again, names of levels not coming to my head because no notes. Yippee. But anyway, I think it does get, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just how I play. I think it gets harder as it goes on and on and on. And yes, I think level 3 is very difficult. For a lot of people, that is enough for them to destroy a TV because they can't beat it and they're trying again and again and again and they just can't get past it. Now, some lucky souls may get past it, like myself, and go on to the next level, but it gets harder and harder and harder and it gets you more frustrated. Now, your game, yes, I think when you get to the end and you're like, oh, it's actually not the end, haha. Yeah, that's frustrating, but I never really found that game nearly as hard as a lot of other games like Dark Souls and like Battletoads. But I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just because I'm an elite video game player. But I just never found it in that way.
Yeah, and if you thought Battletoads was hard, no. See, here's the issue with Ghosts and Goblins. It's a side scroller. You're playing as a knight named Arthur, trying to free his princess from Satan. Here's the biggest issue with Ghosts and Goblins. You have randomly appearing enemies, power-ups that randomly appear, oftentimes in traps where you can't get them. You only have 2 lives. See, most people, once I tell you the game Ghosts and Goblins, you don't really remember the title. But if I tell you, hey, it's the game where you play as the knight, and if you get attacked, your armor falls off and you're in your underwear, and then you have to keep fighting, most people remember that because it's so frustrating. A lot of people wanted to get it out of their memory. That's why they don't remember the game's name, but they can't forget the actual gameplay. The fact that you don't see the first levels hard is ridiculous. All 7 levels, I commonly refer to as the 7 levels of hell, are super difficult. Again, 2 hits and you lose. The levels are long. Enemies are constantly coming. They're randomly coming up. And you get to the 5th level. You're going through and you find this thing, the Holy Cross. Oh, I don't need that. Keep going. Well, then you go on to level 7. And again, all these levels super difficult. Enemies randomly coming at you. You get hit twice. You have to go back to the beginning of the level. You have like 3 continues. You have to do the whole game over again. You get to the final level. You get to Satan. Oh, you forgot the Holy Cross. You have to go back to level 5 and get it. So you go back to level 5. You have to replay levels 5, level 6, and level 7 again at that impossible difficulty. You take the Holy Cross over, and you get to Satan so you can rescue your princess. Oh, this was a trap. You have to play the entire 7 levels over again at a harder difficulty. That moment right there broke more TVs than level 3 in Battletoads did.
But here's the thing. Yeah, that's frustrating. Really frustrating the first time. But when you play the game again, which a lot of people play games multiple times because you want to get your money's worth, you already know that. So that frustration goes away. With my game, the frustration never goes away. It's always there. It's like your best friend. It will never leave you. But the game gets longer and longer, and it gets harder and harder. At least that's how I see it. I think it's difficult, and I beat Battletoads. I beat every game I play because come on, but it's very difficult. As you continue, it gets, like I said, it gets longer as you go on, and the villains get more difficult. With your game, once you figure out, oh, this is what I need to get in order to beat the game, it's not as hard. That frustration kind of goes away. Now, some people may not go back and play, but that's how I see it.
Time.
Well, yes.
Dang it. We gotta
Also, the quotes, it gets harder as it goes on, and it gets longer as it goes on. That's what she said.
Yeah. It's good life lessons.
But we now go to the closing, and because Jacob went first in the opening, Matt, you're going to go first on the closing. 1 minute is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Like I said, to me, the most difficult game and the most frustrating game is Battletoads. This is a game that as you go on, as you progress, it gets harder and harder. Well, yes, the first level and the second level may not be... while the first 2 levels may not be the most difficult levels in the world, they're still challenging in a way. But once you get to level 3 and on, especially level 3 and then on, because that's when you really feel it is in level 3, it's super frustrating, and then it just progressively gets harder and harder, and it just makes it more difficult. With his game, once you find that little trick, once you find out, oh, I have to go back, get this, and then go to Satan, it kind of takes away the frustration when you play it against. You're like, oh, this is what I have to do. And then you end up getting it, and then voila, the frustration goes away. So, yes, Battletoads is the most difficult game of all time, and it makes me want to
Time.
Arts Glass.
All right. Jacob, a minute is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
I'm going to use my extra life and have 2 minutes.
Okay. 2 minutes is on the clock, and time begins when you start talking.
So, while yes, after replaying the game, you know the twist, it does lower that frustration of, hey, you're getting up to that 7th level. Okay, I know I'm going to have to replay the game. You still have to replay the game. The first 7 levels are almost impossible. You have to replay it at a harder difficulty, dodging these enemies that are coming out of nowhere. And as soon as you get hit once, you lose your armor. You visually can see, hey, if I get hit again, I'm dead. I am screwed. You only have 3 repeats that you can use during the whole game. That's 6 lives in total. Battletoads, you have 4 lives in each level. Not only that, you have cheats. Everyone knows the very popular up, down, left, right, A, B starts. You can use that in Battletoads. It gets you 6 lives. You have 6 lives for each level. Also, levels 1, 3, 4, and 6 have warp points mid-level, so you can skip the rest of that level and then skip the next level. Well, yes, it's a hard game. Again, that third level is super, super difficult. All the other levels, hard, but not as hard. All 7 levels of Ghosts and Goblins, pretty much unbeatable. They're frustratingly difficult. Your game is speedrunnable. You know what that means? It's repetitive. So yes, the first couple playthroughs, it's hard and frustrating. After a while, you know what's coming up. Ghosts and Goblins, those enemies are random. The power-ups are random. Every single playthrough is gonna be different. There's no getting good at the game. It's just you have to be attentive at the time while you're frustrated, because as soon as you're doing good, a skeleton comes out of nowhere and hits you, and you're just in your boxers, you're white with red heart boxers, and you get frustrated. Oh, dang it.
Well, there was definitely a heated debate there. Haven, I'm going to go to you first. Who gets the point and why?
All right, they both came out with classic NES games, which was a smart play. I remember playing both of these games, but this time around, I'm gonna have to give it to Matt. You know, he was just more persistent on his game. You know, he didn't know the name of the level. You know, Jacob helped him with that. You know, which was probably a mistake for him. But yeah, they went back and forth. Both games I do remember vividly playing, especially at the very end when Jacob mentioned, you know, the white boxes and the hearts. You know, that clicked. If you would have mentioned that earlier, you know, he might have got the point. But yeah, this time around, I'm giving it to Matt.
Yeah, it's I'm going to go next on this. And I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm going to give my point to Jacob. I mean, while Matt did bring up some good points, I think Jacob did get some counters in there by sort of going to about the how, like, well, yeah, Battletoads was hard, but it wasn't sort of impossible to beat, and it's still made you want to get it out again anyway. So it's one of those ones, but yeah, so Jacob gets my point on this. Ryan, you're the deciding vote here.
Of course. All right then. This one is a bit difficult. Look, to be clear, Matt didn't like give much notes or like much facts and figures when it came to Battletoads, but it was through like by the same, but it didn't detract from his argument though, because he mainly kept focusing on the difficulty surrounding Battletoads, and also, sure, I mean the level 3, the third level, with the Battletoads on the little race the racing level with the Battletoads. Sure, that's one of the harder levels, but Matt didn't focus all on that one. So, I mean, it's more he kept continuing. With Jacob, on the other hand, he almost structured his entire argument off of having to go back to the beginning when it came to Ghosts and Goblins, beating it for the first time, and then that little twist. And Matt did hit him hard when he said that after replaying, once you go back to Ghosts and Goblins again, from a player's perspective, that twist is coming, so it's not going to be as frustrating as it was from the first time. And he did talk about how in Battletoads, you still have to replay the game, and the difficulty is there. And even though you do know the difficulty, doesn't change the fact of how hard the game is going to be. And while Jacob did bring up a lot more interesting notes onto it, unfortunately, I'm going with Matt on this one because he talked more about how the difficulty of the game made you want to throw your controller out of frustration more than a certain twist that happens in a game.
So we go into the next question tied at one apiece. But the third question that we've got is, what is the weakest Kingdom Hearts summon character? I believe is what it was actually worded as. Not weakest character, that's what's in the chat, but anyway, it's what is the weakest Kingdom Hearts summon? And Matt, you're going to go first on this one. The time, your 90 seconds begins when you start talking.
I went with Chicken Little. Now, no secret, I'm not the biggest Kingdom Hearts fan. This is one of the franchises I don't play as much as, say, Mario, or you name some of the big franchises. This is one I haven't played quite as much out of the well-known, especially in the, I guess, East countries like Japan and whatnot. To me, when I play this game and I do use Chicken Little, it doesn't really do anything. He just kind of appears. It's nothing exciting as far as the summon goes. And the character isn't really that strong, too. It's one of the weaker characters in the entire game. So I went with Chicken Little. And there's my time.
All right. Jacob, it's back to you. Time for you to start. 90 seconds is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
All right. Well, Matt, I'm a little upset that I'm not going to beat you this round. It's okay. I'll just beat you next round. You didn't pick the right summon. It's obvious you're not a Kingdom Hearts fan. I'm not going to attack you now. I'll attack you at the very beginning of the 5 minutes, and I'll just let you quit instantly because you have no chance in this one. The correct answer is a summon found in Kingdom Hearts 1, the first one. And it's a shame because he is a fan favorite character. And I'm talking about the Great Dragon, Mushu, voiced by Eddie Murphy in Mulan, not voiced by Eddie Murphy in the game. And Mushu, everyone's favorite character. You think, hey, he's coming into this game, a really fun game. Hey, he's gonna be very very powerful. Well, he's not. When you're using him, you're limited to what you can and cannot do. You can't attack when you're using him. He's the only one allowed to attack. He shoots out fireballs that are pretty weak. And then the sad part, too, is there's actually a handful of enemies that are completely immune to fire damage, making him useless in a majority of the game. So again, let's make this quick and easy. My pick, the correct pick, is Mushu.
It's time to unlock the freeform debate.
Yes. Malcolm, I'm sorry if I offend you on anything that I say.
Is that from Final Fantasy?
5 minutes is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, I gotta adjust my
All right.
if I keep turning it. Okay. you
So
can go
Matt,
ahead.
again, I'm going to make this short, sweet, and easy to let everyone know that you did not pick the right one. Chicken Little is actually very useful, especially in the beginning game. He has 3 main attacks. The first one is a magnet skill. He whistles, it stuns enemies and brings them closer to you so you can attack them. And especially with your Keyblade, it's a wide attack. You can attack multiple enemies at a time. And it's actually really, really popular and really useful, especially very beginning of the game, whenever you don't have the magnet spell. And even towards the end of the game, he's a cheap summon. Magnet's not that cheap. He's really a useful just for that alone. He does have a second attack where he shoots baseballs at enemies. It's a little more random who he'll shoot at and who he won't, but he's still it's great for long range. It's effective against every enemy out there, and they're actually pretty damaging. His very last thing is his limit, and it's a first-person shooter mode. You use him as a machine gun. Who doesn't want to use Chicken Little as a machine gun? But first-person shooter. You are shooting baseballs at enemies again, just like first-person. So you are controlling where they go. The only downside is you can't move. But you know what is not a downside about it? During the entire thing, Sora is unable to be damaged. There's a second thing that is great about this. Not only are you unable to get damaged, Sora can get healed by Chicken Little during the summon.
Okay, so I'm not going to go out here and say, oh, Mushu is the most powerful being in this game. I'm not going to do that because that's not the question as far as who is stronger, who is out of the two, which one of your characters would be weaker. But to me, I still find Chicken Little kind of the weakest. He's kind of, to me anyway, pointless in a way. Doesn't really do a whole lot. Yeah, you have the baseball thingy. That's cool and all. But I mean, and maybe I look, no secret. I haven't played a whole lot of this game. I mean, I played with Chicken Little and Mushu and whatnot. But to me, anyway, when I play with Chicken Little, I don't have much success in a way. You know what I mean? But at least with Mushu, while he's not that powerful, at least I can do something with him in a way. At least I can control him and do whatever I want. I'll let you take the floor because it looks like you want to say something because you're kind of looking like this.
Yeah, because you're completely wrong. But okay, again, this is one great thing about debate. You might not know everything, but you can BS your way out of stuff. Good
I'm
luck
speaking
trying to do
facts.
it. Yes. So straight up, whenever you're with Mushu, he jumps on your head and starts
Yep.
shooting fireballs at you. The entire time, well, yes, you can move. You cannot aim who's getting shot at. So a lot of times what happens is Mushu shooting at an enemy, another enemy is coming over from the side, and even if you turn, Mushu is still trying to target that other enemy. You cannot attack yourself. You are stuck to whatever Mushu is doing. And especially towards the mid game, guess what? Wizard Heartless, Red Nocturne, and Leon, all enemies that are immune to fire damage, making Mushu useless for that part of the game. Chicken Little, you say you didn't have luck. That's because you probably weren't using them right. I mean, just that magnet
It's a matter of
skill
opinion.
alone is super useful. It stuns enemies. If you're being attacked by a bunch of enemies, get Chicken Little out. It gives you that nice little break while you summon him. That cute little scene where he runs up to you, his glasses fall off. You have to pick him up and put him on him. It's so cute. But then you do that magnet where he whistles and everyone's stunned and comes towards you. Take your Keyblade out, swing, and you got yourself out of that hole. With Mushu, you get him, he starts shooting fireballs at one. Get him out. Okay, shoot fireballs at the other. This entire time you're getting attacked. You cannot attack, and you're dead. You don't even last past the second one. Whereas with Chicken Little, all 3 phases are useful. Mushu, 1 phase, and useless.
Okay. How much time is left, Malcolm? So I can kind of wrap this up real quick.
12 seconds.
Okay. So 12 seconds of conversation real quick. So, like I said with Mushu, I'm not arguing he's the most powerful. of them all. I'm just arguing that he's not the weakest.
Time.
Okay.
I mean, you spent
I'll
most
get
of it
to the
talking about
questions.
12 seconds.
I know. I tried.
Right. 1 minute is on the clock because Matt opened. Jacob, you go first on the closing. 1 minute begins when you start talking.
You're right saying that Mushu is not the strongest because he is the weakest. You're trying to argue that Chicken Little is weaker than Mushu. That's false. Chicken Little has 3 different attacks that he can use, or 3 different uses. The only one that's weak is the magnet because it doesn't attack. But what it does do is it keeps them from being able to attack, brings them into you so you can attack. You have the where he shoots the baseballs. It's stronger than Mushu's fireballs. Plus, while he's doing that, you can run around and take out the people that Chicken Little is not attacking. And even his first-person shooter, while yes, you cannot move, you can turn around and look at other places and aim at certain spots and dictate where Chicken Little attacks. When you have Mushu, his attacks are pretty weak in the first place, but that's all that's happening. You cannot do anything. You can move around, but you cannot attack. You are stuck making him attack for you, and they're really weak attacks on enemies they work on. There are plenty of enemies out there that Mushu is useless against because they are immune to fire.
Time. Matt, you got a minute on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Oh boy, here we go. All right. So, like I said before, I'm not arguing who's, if Mushu's the strongest or not. I'm not doing that at all, because that's not the point of the question. But to me, when I think of the weakest summon, I'm not talking about like what it does to affect the other players that you might have on your end. I'm talking about the actual summon itself. Well, yes, you may not be able to move around as much as when you're using Mushu or whatever. To me, as far as the summon goes, that doesn't make him just the weakest at all to me. With Chicken Little, I just find him useless. Really, when I use him, I for some reason, and maybe it's me, I cannot really do as much as far as like the fighting goes in a way. So, but at least with Mushu, I can. I can actually do some things. So that's going to wrap up this beautiful argument for me because I conclude my time.
I was just about to say that was perfect time.
There we go.
But I'm going to go first
Right.
when it comes to the judging on this. I mean, for different reasons, you probably picked the correct 2 that for this. But my point's going to easily go to Jacob, as he brought up the good points that Chicken Little does have about the fact that he's more of a defense summon than something to use to attack, and he also brought up the limitations that Mushu really has. And I mean, let's just say there's a reason that they didn't bring Mushu back for a summon in later games. So, but Ryan, who are you going to give your point to, and why?
Hands down is Jacob, because he did bring more facts about, and also from player's perspective, he did talk about he did talk about pros and cons of both summons. Matt did bring about how he played Chicken Little, but if he had brought in some more like experience or just more perspective on why Chicken Little is not good compared to Mushu, then possibly there could have been some more even kill there. But Jacob, it was pretty clear he knew how to get his point across. So Jacob.
Now we move on to the final question of the main round, and this one is, Matt does need to hit because he'll lose if he doesn't. That's pretty much all I'm scared of that. But we're going to go to Jacob first to open. I might have to give the question first. But the question is, who is the better hero outside of Mario and Link? And Jacob, you go first. 90 seconds on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
We'll talk about an opinionated question because this is another opinionated question. But if you look at the best heroes in video games, when you start thinking of consoles, these characters come to your mind. And there's one outside of Mario and Link. When you start thinking about certain consoles, you start thinking of this character. He's been in over 40 games. He's been in 3 TV shows. It hasn't come out yet, but he's going to be in a movie, hopefully, if it ever comes out. Most people's favorite hedgehog, a certain blue hedgehog that loves to wear red shoes, and it's got to go fast. Got to go fast. Got to go faster, 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 faster. And it is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Now, we go to Matt for his 90 seconds opening. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, so to me, this was kind of a difficult question. There's a lot of really good heroes out there in video games and whatnot. But to me, Samus. Hope I said her name right. Spoilers, by the way, in case you did. She, to me, I'll get into why in a minute. This guy. Matter of opinion.
All right. We've got 5 minutes on the clock for the main round. Who is the better hero? I'm going to reiterate that Matt needs to hit this. So time begins when someone starts talking.
I think I'm going to go first on this one. So
I'll let you go first.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Anyway, to me,
You're welcome.
Samus. This is a love fest right now. Samus, to me, Samus, however you want to say her name, is the best hero. You look at all her games and whatnot. This is a character that many people love and want to see continuously and want to see more games of her. To me, when it comes to Sonic, though, you did mention 40 games. While my character wasn't in 40 video games, 3 TV shows, and a potential movie coming up, sometimes less is more. And a lot of those games, the Sonic games, are really, really, really bad. Hi, friend. They're horrifically bad.
The joys of doing this at
very
work.
repetitive in a way, too. They're very repetitive, and the villain is basically the same thing. You basically got a guy who would be a general manager at a Quickie Mart if he was in our world. But at least with mine, it's not as repetitive. At least you get more to do, and you get more than like 1 or 2 villains, depending on.
You get more than 1 or 2 villains. Tell me 3 villains then, because there's Ridley. There's the Metroid, which isn't even a villain. Who else? I mean, if you're going to tell me,
Maybe I misspoke.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you're going to tell me,
essentially in all these Sonic games. Okay, you have Mr. General Manager that Karen wants to see when she goes to Walmart because her purchases were wrong. Okay, that's who you have in there, and it's basically the same game. It basically is, and if it's any different, the games are bad. They're quite bad. There hasn't been a good Sonic game in 10 years now?
I mean, they did have Sonic Mania, which was great and just came out a couple of years ago. Yeah. Well, yes, Sonic has been in some bad games. He still sells. He has one villain. Okay, Dr. Robotnik, Dr. Eggman, whatever you want to call him. Well, he also has Shadow, Rogue, Vector, Metal Sonic. There's not just one villain. He has several. Well, yes, most people remember Dr. Eggman because he is one of the biggest, baddest villains in all of video games. He has several different villains. Here's one thing why people are wanting more Samus games. because you don't know that much about Samus. I mean, the only reason we know Samus is a woman is because at the very end of the last game, it flashes her suit off and you can see her in her underwear. Or underwear, it's
Right.
pixelated. Oh man, that's a girl. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The next game, you don't learn anything about her. There's no games. Do you learn anything about this character? You have to go outside to read the mangas to find out that Ridley killed her mom and she's a bounty hunter, and that's it.
But
Sonic,
you don't really.
what?
There's not really much about Sonic, really. I mean, when you look at it, he's a very simple character. Which, I mean, okay, simple isn't always bad, but there's not really a whole lot about Sonic. What does Sonic do for the most part, especially in most of his games? He just runs, he gets his rings, he goes after Eggman. He doesn't, really do a whole lot. At least my character does more than just walk around and collect rings.
Yeah, no, all your character does is walk around places and shoot aliens that are minding their own business, living on their home planet.
Yeah.
No, see, Sonic is minding his own business in his forest in Green Hill Zone, and Dr. Eggman comes to try to destroy the forest. Yeah, Sonic's not standing for that. Literally, like every Sonic game, he is trying to save the world. What's Samus doing? I don't know. I don't find anything about it. What has Sonic done outside of his video games too? You know how many kids love chili cheese dogs? You know why? Because of Sonic. Because he's a cool guy who loves chili cheese dogs, wears red shoes, soap shoes. Everyone loves that. And he has his own theme song. Samus doesn't have iconic music. I mean, if I just start going do 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 do, everyone knows that's Sonic because he's such a great character. And while he hasn't been in a lot of great games, he's been in some fantastic games.
But a lot of the things you said, like the chili cheese dogs and saying all these things, those aren't really in the games per se. You learn that stuff outside of the games as well. So basically, if we stick to video games, my thoughts would go.
We now get to the closing. 1 minute is on the clock. Because Jacob went first, Matt goes first on the closing. And 1 minute starts when you start talking.
I'll use my extension just in case I need it.
2 minutes is on the clock and time begins when you start talking.
Okay, so if we're sticking to just the games, we're not going outside because this is Gamezone. This isn't games, books, and movies brawl. We're sticking to just the games. With Sonic, there's really not much to go about. He's a little hedgehog who goes after rings, and there's a guy who should be running a Walmart who skipped work, who is trying to mess with him, so he has to go stop him. Plus, with Sonic, there's been a ton of games out there that have been absolute garbage. Yeah, we had Sonic Mania, but that was like the first since probably the 90s to maybe very early 2000s, maybe. But with Samus, while there's not 40 games out there and she's not in these shows or whatever, to me, less is more. Unless you're the MCU, then you could put out like 55 movies and they're all good. With Samus, she does more than just walk around and collect rings and go after a guy that's terrorizing her. There's more she does. She actually shoots people. Sonic just kind of runs and jumps and all that stuff. Also, when you kind of say Sonic or Metroid or whatever, and you say there's a new game coming out, or you ask, hey, what game would you like to see for this character? You think of Samus. You say Samus if you're going to give Sonic or Samus because we've had so many Sonic games that are so bad, we're burned out. I'm not saying Sonic is a horrible character. I think these are both very good characters. I just think when we're talking about the best, Samus is the best, and people have been clamoring for the next game for Samus that just got delayed. They're currently working on it right now. I need that game in my life. But a lot of people want this game, but with Sonic, it's just like, oh, okay, cool. Sure, why not? And that's my time.
It really is.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect timing.
Jacob, you got 1 minute on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
So, Matt, the reason why I'm bringing more than just the games into it, even though this is Game Zone, is because Sonic has had such an impact in the world that it's spawned TV shows, it's spawned a movie. Samus hasn't done that. You know, when you think of Nintendo, you think of Mario, you think of Link. Okay, we have to start thinking of other people. Okay, Donkey Kong, Kirby, Luigi, he's not on there. It's a while before you actually think of Samus. If you think of video games in general, Sonic, if he's not the first one, he's the second or the third. Guinness Book of World Records, the top 50 video game characters. Sonic's number 10. Samus is number 15 or 14. So right there, Sonic is better. The reason why you've had more games of Sonic is because he's a better character. More people have shown that they wanted more. The reason people are wanting a new Metroid game now.
And we'll never get to hear the end of that sentence. But
Okay, I'll say it afterwards.
But now we get to the judging, and Ryan, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Who are you going to give your point to, and why?
Look, guys, I'm going to be honest. Not much was said about what makes their character heroic. So I guess if I have to look at this argument, I mean, sure, you guys were able to put the differences between them. You know, one of them is violent, you know, because she shoots renegade aliens. The other one is non-violent because they just run around collecting rings. But there wasn't much there. You did touch on their villains for a bit. Could have loved more. Jacob, you adding the fact that of the manga stuff to Samus this time, unfortunately, adding more information of an opponent's character did hurt you. But, yeah, but Matt, oh god, it was damn. I guess coming down, honestly, closing will have to suffice right here. So, with the closing, Jacob, because Jacob had more ammunition in his closing.
I'm going to go next on this. I'm actually leaning the other way. I'm going to give my point to Matt. Because Jacob did get a lot of good points in there. I think Matt's points he brought up was that with Samus having more great villains and that Sonic really only has the one, and how most of the interesting things about Sonic was said outside of the games. So it's going to go to Matt, but it was really a tough debate because it was really close, but there's not a lot of points to sort of go on for the judging as well. So, Haven, you're the tiebreaker in this. Who are you going to give your point to?
All right, I think this was the best, question for both of these guys. You know, they really brung it. Yeah, for a little while, unless I didn't hear Matt say the video game, I couldn't tell, unless I missed that in the very beginning. And it took me a little while. Yeah, Jacob has some good points too. If they would have talked more about, like Ryan said, what made them the better hero, because that was the question. I'm not going to give it to Jacob. Should have, because everybody knows Sonic. If he would have just gave a couple more points, but yeah.
Which means we do go to a speed round question. And the way the speed round works is they get an opening of 45 seconds. Then they get a middle round of 30 seconds. And then they get a closing of 20. So I get that there. And I'm going to say the question, and the first person to say and I'm going to say it twice, and then first person they'll say the name. First person to say the name will get to sort of give the answer first, and it'll be the next one. All right. So your speed round question is: what is the best trivia-based game? And it can be any kind of game. It doesn't have to be computer game or anything. And I'll just repeat it again. What is the best trivia-based game?
Jacob. I'm gonna go with the Trivial Pursuit board game.
I'll go with Seen It.
All right, so I've got Trivial Pursuit versus Seen It. I mean, for a second I thought Matt just said Cedar, which confused me more, but then I actually realised what he actually said. But because Jacob said his name first, he gets to go first. 45 seconds is on the clock, and for the opening, try and keep it to your own thing, but you can attack the other ones in the other rounds. So 45 seconds start when you start talking.
When you think of the best trivia game, there's only one correct answer, and you have to go back to the granddaddy of them all, Trivial Pursuit. Very simple format. You just answer questions. That's the entire game. You move around. You have 6 different categories, all depending on what color you land on. To win, you have to land on certain spots to get a piece of the pie. Once your piece of the pie is filled, you win. It's very easy, very simple, easy to learn, universal. You can take it to just about anyone, and they can start playing and start having fun. There's a reason Trivial Pursuit has stood the test of time. They're recreating it. It's just like Monopoly. They have different iterations, but it's still the same thing.
Time. Matt, 45 seconds is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Scene is a game that has obviously spawned off, like many other games, multiple things due to its popularity. But this is a game that it's more than just answering questions. Yeah, it's answering questions, but you get, to some of the other ones, like the movies, whatnot. They take like scenes from movies, or they take just things you can watch on a disc, and it applies to the actual question itself. It basically becomes a question on its own. Which can make it more fun in a way, because you're doing more than just kind of sitting there listening, answering. It actually gets you more involved in the things you do. I don't even know if I had time left or not, but oh well.
You did, but
oh, cool.
Finish. But finishing early.
Yeah.
As I did, I was sort of talking to myself while we set the time for that. Jacob, 30 seconds is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
The issue with Seen It is it's very niche. It's only to a certain community. Main Seen It is strictly movies. So you have to get people who know movies. Yes, they did branch it out a little bit, but still, every iteration is tied to that one community. With Trivial Pursuit, anyone can play it. There are the 6 different categories. If you don't know the question, there's multiple choice. You can guess your way to that certain category. It's very universal. Everyone can play it. Seen It is very niche. It's tied to just movie trivia, or with those different iterations, it's tied to just sports or just TV shows. Trivial Pursuit is everything.
Matt, 30 seconds is on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, yeah. A lot of the games do stick to one basic area as a whole, but let's say you're at a friend's house, like, hey, we're all into sports. Okay, cool. Let's do sports. Movies. Okay, let's do movies. Disney. Oh, let's do Disney. It goes into all these different things, so it gives you different options. So it's like, oh, I just feel like playing sports. You can stick to that. Oh, I just feel like playing movies. You can stick to that. And it's more than just basic. Trivia Pursuit is a pretty basic game. But with Seen It, there's more than just sitting down and listening to a question answering.
Right, now we're down to the last 20 seconds. This is the most important 20 seconds you've ever had in your life. Jacob, it's back to you.
You can tailor Trivial Pursuit to your own type of game style. You have those 6 different categories. You can move around. You can go the entire game without answering a single history question until the very end where you have to get that history piece of the pie, and then just multiple choice your way through it. Trivial Pursuit, it's very niche. Hey, if you have 5 friends and one of them doesn't like sports, you're not going to play Trivial Pursuit sports.
Matt, 20 seconds on the clock. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, so with Seen It, it's like Trivia Pursuit, but it adds something to it. It adds this option to where you put in the disc in a TV, so you land on a certain thing, and you have a certain question. You have to watch a movie scene, or you have to, you get a picture of somebody, and it slowly starts appearing. So you have to guess who that is. There's more to it than just answering questions. You have to have knowledge by what you see, and then also what I kind of think is, yeah.
All right. Haven, I'm going to go to you first. Who are you going to give your point to and why?
Both of these guys missed the opportunity to say that the whole family could play it, but the one I'm going to give my point to Jacob. When he started off, he said that, it's a game that's universal. You could play it in any country. Anybody could pick it up. He really harped on that. He really talked about the game, and he was able to counteract some of the Matt stuff, where Matt was talking about his game, Seen It. So I think Jacob just had the better argument for me in that speed round. So I'm going to give it to Jacob.
Ryan, I'm going to go to you next. Who are you going to give your point to and why?
This was difficult because both trivia games are fun in their own genres. Matt did talk about the pluses of when it comes to Seen It and how, if you hang out with friends and they're just like, they have this whole one mindset that they like this, and there's a game that can not only be fun for them, but also, like he mentioned in his opening, more opportunities for even more in-depth or even more fun questions that you would go with Seen It. With Trivial Pursuit, Jacob did go through a lot of the great mechanics of it. These guys did a great job describing why these games are fun to play. I guess when it comes down to it, ultimately, let's see, I'm going to have to give my point to Jacob, because with Jacob, that knock he did on him about the fact that Seen It is focused on one specific category. I mean, Matt did bounce back, though, but the fact that with Trivial Pursuit, he did focus on how a lot of people can play this, and also you can tinker the game to where you don't have to answer a certain set of questions, or, like he also mentioned, multiple choice, to where you can pretty much, like Trivial Pursuit, guess your way to the answer.
With that means, and your winner, Jacob E. West. We're going to go to Matt first for the post-match interviews. Matt, how do you feel about how it went down today?
I thought I did better than I thought I did better than I thought I was going to heading into this match. I thought, honestly, I was going to get knocked out. The Kingdom Hearts one, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this at all, because, to be honest, all I did was look up who's the weakest, who's the strongest, and kind of went about it in that way, shape, or form. I feel right, though. Jacob, you did really good. Brooklyn has a very difficult opponent. But yeah, I think it's gonna be nice to kind of take a back seat, kind of focus on some of the behind the scenes for now and then. Once we get into a groove and whatnot, maybe I can step back in and play.
But I'm going to go to Jacob now. Jacob, how do you feel about your win today?
I am ecstatic right now. Matt saying he was pretty sure I was going to knock him out. Whenever, especially because he didn't have notes. I knew it was still going to be tough. It was still going to be a tough win. The only easy point that I knew I had was the Kingdom Hearts one, just because of the little bit of studying that I did, the little bit of stuff that I found to really use against him. All the other questions, though, I mean, were back and forth. Could go any way. I think that I messed up, though, with that last question. I didn't come at Matt with the fire of someone who wanted to win, especially in that last question. I really let him take that from me to get us to the speed rounds. And trust me, I will not make the same mistake with the little chef, Brooklyn.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting title match, so to speak. But we'll get the judges' thoughts. Brian, how did you feel about how the match went down today?
Well, this match definitely did not disappoint. Matt did say he didn't have notes in here, but let's be honest. Debating is not about BSing your way. It's about how well you argue your point. And from what we've seen in plenty of matches, not just in Gamezone, but in Sports Brawl, in late TV fights, in Battleground itself, as long as you're able to argue like in your mind correctly and able to really reflect off your opponent, you can take a question to where you don't have the best pick and still end up winning that round. And it's proven throughout this entire league. So I definitely will not count. I'm not going to hold that towards Matt, man. I mean, if this is you without notes, then we're pretty sure we've seen you play with notes. Let's just say, man, don't knock yourself down here. You got to the speed round, and Jacob, yeah. Let's just say you didn't disappoint here. Just be careful in certain areas when you provide information where it might help or hurt your opponents there. Now, it didn't really knock you that much here, but if you were expecting a knockout, there's definitely something in this match you can look back at and wonder, wait, why did I do that? But other than that, this is going to be good. I can't wait to see the next time these guys are back in the ring. I mean, I know Jacob's moving on, but I can't wait to see when Matt comes back in. Maybe down the road I might face him again, but right now I'm not looking towards that. But this was pretty good.
Haven, how did you feel about how the match went down today?
Oh, I thought it was interesting. Both of these competitors, I don't know if they faced off before in different types of the league that they do here. But yeah, man, I think with Matt not having notes, I think that kind of handicapped him for certain things. Jacob was able to talk more. I think he took more time out of the whole match, with going at it, which is a great strategy to have. I think that he was correct in saying that in the fourth question, he should have came harder, because if he is going to go face the champion next, he's going to have to bring some more enthusiasm and just, keep nailing, hitting the head on the nail with his points if he wants to get the belt, But yeah, this was a great match. I was glad to be here as a judge.
But yeah, this really was a great match. It just went back and forth sort of all the way through. So, and as a judge, it's fun to actually have a match that doesn't sort of finish sort of after the main round. Sometimes it's fun to go to the final round and see what happens. But for all of us here from Haven, from Jacob, from Ryan, from Matt, we'll see you next week. I don't know what the match is when this gets uploaded, but there'll be something. And game over.